Welcome to the Healthy Perspective Podcast with your host, chiropractor, entrepreneur, mentor, and author, Dr. Chris Bowman. He'll break down and extract the secret sauce behind his own success and the success of some of the top leaders in every category and from around the world. Get ready for your weekly mental adjustment because shift is going to happen.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Healthy Perspective Podcast. Today, we are blessed and honored to have Dr. Brian with us. He has been a mentor of mine, my whole career in chiropractic, a pillar of chiropractic philosophy, of politics. Dr. Brian has been there since I've been in practice and pushing the agenda forward for chiropractic being a holistic profession, a profession that provides the people what they need, a life without subluxations, and pushing that at the highest level within California. I'm so thankful for him and inspired by his next moves. He moved out of California into Florida, published a book, and is now doing things bigger beyond just one spine at a time. Dr. Brian, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Chris. Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, as we were talking a little bit beforehand, I always love to dig into the story behind the man because people see you, on Facebook with hundreds and thousands of, of comments. You see you publish a book, you see selling a successful practice of, 20 some odd years. Tell me where it all started. Like where did this conviction to be a chiropractor to propel you into everything that you're doing now start?
Yeah, it's funny. If you asked me when I was a kid, what do I want to do when I grow up? Chiropractic wasn't even on the radar. Didn't even know what it was.
It usually isn't.
Right? I thought I was going to be a movie producer. That's what I wanted to do. I was growing up in Long Island, New York, wanted to go to UCLA, USC, and become this big famous movie producer. I was very active as a kid. Wasn't the most coordinated in the world, but I did a lot of martial arts. I wrestled in high school, but never got exposed to chiropractic. I went to college initially. I ended up needing to go to a state school in New York because of financial reasons and everything else. But there were no film programs, so I could only do theater. So I went to one of the schools upstate New York, one of the state universities in New York, and I was in a theater program and did not really like what I was doing at all. It wasn't for me. I was spending all my time in the gym, training people, and I was in the fraternity, all that other stuff. And then someone introduced physical therapy to me and said, it's kind of like personal training, but the next level, you think about doing that. And I read about physical therapy. I'm like, yeah, this seems really awesome. You're using your body. It's very physical, helping people overcome all these issues. So I changed all my classes from theater to pre-med.
Wow.
It was like, and I wasn't even doing that well in school. I was barely 2.0 because I was just messing around with my fraternity. I switched to pre-med. And all of a sudden, I'm like, Dean's List, the good Dean's List this time, 3.8, 3.9s, by taking biochem, by all this crazy stuff.
Oh my God.
And after being in the program, for pre-physical therapy for a couple of months, my mom was dating this guy named Nat, who was a retired police officer from New York, NYPD. And Nat said to me, did you ever think about being a chiropractor? Like, a chiropractor, what do they do? Don't they just like crack people's backs? And aren't they like fake doctors? Like all that stuff that people would say 25, 30 years ago, I had no idea what they were. He goes, honestly, Brian, he goes, I have no idea. He goes, but my son just started chiropractic school at Life in Marietta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. He loves it. He's never been the same. You got to just talk to him. So I never met Steve, his son, before. We talk on the phone, and Steve starts telling me all about the principles of chiropractic, that healing comes from above, down, inside out, that what we need is a fully functioning nervous system, free of interference. You don't use drugs, you don't take surgery unless absolutely necessary, but that's not the way that chiropractors work. They work with their own innate healing ability. And I even get the chills talking about it because it just resonated so much with me, because as a kid, I never did drugs pushed or prescribed. I was not the guy that was out there drinking, smoking pot, and doing all that other stuff. I was kind of the lame one that would be driving everybody. Right. So I hung out with some of those people, some of them, but that wasn't my thing. So the whole chiropractic philosophy just resonated with me. And so Nat and my mom were engaged to get married, and I was going to meet Steve for the first time at our parents' wedding. And Steve planned on, he was going to be off from school that entire week. He was taking me around to different chiropractic offices to expose me to the profession. Day and a half before the wedding, Nat, Steve's dad, dies suddenly.
Oh my gosh.
So he ends up having his funeral on the day of his wedding. So I end up meeting Steve at his dad's funeral instead of his dad's wedding. This guy, 36 hours shy of being my stepbrother, is now a guy I spoke to on the phone. And so, of course, I go up to Steve at the funeral, give him this hug and everything. And he says to me, what time should I pick you up on Monday? I'm like, what? I'm like, you're mourning your dad's loss and everything. He goes, no, this purpose is bigger. Because Steve's purpose is bigger than the existence of a person, even his father. He needed, because he knows that chiropractic's a calling, and no one gets introduced to it by accident.
Right.
So Steve took me around that week to some of the greats in our profession, including Pasquale Sarasoli, who you may have heard of, Self Center, CELL-F Center, the whole New Beginnings movement in New Jersey, kind of started, with a lot of what he was doing. And so that was the week I became a chiropractor. Ended up going to chiropractic college, same as Steve, lived with him for his last year and a half. I was the best man at his wedding, and he's still one of my closest friends. And, God does amazing things, when you're just open. And it's interesting because I had a determination at this point to do more than chiropractic. I always wanted to do chiropractic to change people's lives and help the nervous system function better. But even a guy like Nat, who was a retired police officer, thought he was healthy. When he woke up that morning, he thought he was healthy because he didn't have any symptoms. And a lot of people wake up in the morning thinking they're healthy and don't make it through the rest of the day. Right. Or they wake up in the morning and they end up with a diagnosis of something terminal, as if they were healthy the day before.
Right.
The healthy people don't just suddenly drop dead without it being a trauma. Asymptomatic people do. And so that's kind of where I started coming up with the whole concept of D.R.E.A.M, having the 5 keys to a wellness lifestyle of being diet, relaxation, exercise, being an adjustment, and mental wellness. And a lot of people understand about diet, eating the right foods, and relaxation, and also, what goes in. I mean, there's a big description of each one, but I know we don't have a ton of time for that. Relaxation, we know about that. People know about exercise. They know about thinking well, with mental wellness, but they don't think about being an adjustment, which is being in balance mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and having optimal brain-body communication through the nervous system. Because you could eat all the right foods in the world, but if your nervous system is not communicating with all your organs, muscle, and glands optimally, that food may not be nutritious, and you end up with lots of problems. So you need your brain that coordinates everything, telling the body exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And so that was kind of the missing component to the wellness lifestyle. So through the loss of Nat, not only was I determined to be a chiropractor, but to educate people on how to keep the nervous system functioning optimally, which is what we as chiropractors, fix. But I don't want to be a hammer constantly knocking in a nail. I want people to come to me not needing an adjustment.
Yeah.
I want them to come to me for checkups, just like a dentist, truly shouldn't want their people to come with cavities, and all other kinds of dental problems. They want to maintain that and in our case, promote health and wellness for a lifetime. Yeah. So that's ultimately what started my journey and motivated me to take everything from practicing chiropractic, having 5 wellness centers between New York and San Diego, to now a book, online courses, master classes, and summits, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I love it. And almost every chiropractor that is a chiropractor for 15, 20 years or, whatever, has a similar story. And it almost has like an epic movie type of thing where a guy's just walking along, minding his own business, not necessarily doing anything wrong or bad. And then boom, something happens and it's like, oh, my eyes are open. I mean, I have a similar story too. I mean, it's just these random people in life that probably are angels, right? Have you considered chiropractic? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't really talk to them much after that. And it's just, this happens and it changes the trajectory of your life.
Dr. Chris, it's so funny you say that because I always refer to Nat as the angel in my life that put me on the path. And I think I even mentioned that in the book that I refer to him as the angel. So wow, God bless it. You said angel. I mean, that's exactly what I think these people are. And God's just putting these angel moments in our lives. Sometimes we're ready to receive them. Sometimes we're not. But I think that they'll keep coming until we're ready, because if that's what you're supposed to do, that's what you end up doing. Because we say chiropractic is a calling. Healthcare is a calling. Yeah. Some people get into it just for the money. The majority of them get it because there's something they have to do to change people's lives naturally.
Yeah. And, I've had probably a similar experience to most, holistic and principled chiropractors, where COVID actually changed the trajectory of my practice. Not where am I going, but holy cow, like this is like people are coming out of the woodworks to come find me. And it's really interesting because the wellness people that I had that came without usually symptoms, that come weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, are the ones that never really got super sick, that never really it never really phased them. Like, I'm sure maybe they started working from home, but these are the people that like thrived through the pandemic. Did you have a similar experience?
Oh yeah, 100%. My practice, it skyrocketed. It was the hardest thing, selling 3 practices to get out of California because they were the most successful. They were automated. I was working the fewest amount of hours because of COVID. You know, the kids weren't in school, the parents weren't at work. So, you know, I left July of 2021. So things were starting to, you know, people were starting to go back to school. But yeah, I mean, the wellness practice members, they were the ones that if they got COVID, it wasn't a big deal. But they were the ones telling the other people, hey, if you want to stay healthy, you got to do these things, but you've got to also make sure that you have a chiropractor on your healthcare team to make sure that your brain and body are communicating optimally through the nervous system.
Right. Yeah. It was also a super hard time because half my wellness practice also moved to Florida or Tennessee or Idaho or
Idaho,
like,
Texas.
I trained you up too well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you know, I was reflecting on this. You know, you got these people with we have a lot of education, you know, bachelor's and then 3.5 years or whatever of grad school. But you got these people with, you know, 12, 15 years, neurologists, cardiologists, you know, all that stuff, and they're out of a job for 6 months of 2020. That the highest trained people in the world are out of a job, and here chiropractors are like upscaling and making a difference in hundreds and thousands of people's lives. It's reminiscent of 1918 in the flu pandemic, where it's like medical doctors are without an answer, and here chiropractors are doing the same thing that we always do. We don't have a COVID adjustment, we don't have an immune adjustment, we just say things more when they're relevant, you know.
Dr. Chris, you're so on. You know, another experience like that was 9/11. So I was practicing in New York at the time when 9/11 hit, and I was on the board, the executive board for the New York Chiropractic Council. And for the very first time in history, chiropractors, our association, aligned with the American Red Cross and FEMA, and we were at ground zero adjusting the firefighters, police officers, and relief workers around the clock, 24 hours a day for more than 12 months. It was just, there were no medical doctors because people were either unfortunately dead or fine. There were very few injuries. So after day 2, there was no need for the medical doctors. Wow. Chiropractors, we were there and we were the requested service for over a year. We couldn't even stop it if we wanted to because we were so highly requested. And no matter what time of day, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be there at the respite center. People would be getting the food. They'd come and get their adjustment lined up. There was never a break. They wanted our service. And the same exact thing with COVID. You know, a lot of healthcare providers, like you're saying, except for the frontline workers that are treating COVID patients, there were no electives or anything like that, elective surgeries and all those other things. So chiropractors were there in the front lines. And thank goodness that with the exception of one state, chiropractors were still able to practice and keep their doors open because, and what was the line that we had to use with the legislators and everything was, look, one of the number one reasons that people go to urgent care is for back pain and neck pain. So we're going to keep people out of those facilities, right? But we know it wasn't about back pain and neck pain. Yes, we did keep people out of those facilities, so it wasn't a lie. But the truth of the matter is we were helping their immune system be stronger and helping them process through everything mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally through this entire pandemic.
Yeah. And I wonder if there were those chiropractors too that, you know, believe the lie that, you know, we're not real doctors or we're not, we just treat neck pain or back pain or whatever. And you know, in all these different states, especially California, being deemed essential workers. I wonder if that like lit a new fire and it's be like, well, I'm recognized by the state as someone that needs to work through a pandemic when cardiologists and neurologists are sitting on the sidelines. Like, what I have is special, you know, because I feel like so many chiropractors can, you know, for you listening to the podcast, there's a, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a derogatory term, but people that do the flying 7, you know, where it's just, you know, hit them on the left, hit them on the right, neck, low back, or, you know, mid back. And it's not really this science and this art of adjusting as much as it is a gross manipulation of joints without recognizing the nervous system's involvement in getting that person to experience optimal life. You know, I wonder if that lit a fire. It's like, why am I deemed optimal if I'm doing the same thing on the same person every single time? Like, there must be something important here. You know, I wonder if it caused people to like dig deeper and figure out. It's like, man, you have so much more than 7 maneuvers in your arsenal that you can use to help people. You know, if any chiropractors are listening, and that was you, like, I'd love to hear that story of how the pandemic changed the way you practice, because I think that's important for all of us. And that can be a why, or they talk about in the Bible, like a memorial stone of like, from this moment, I am different. I am not going back to the way things were. And I think that's how every chiropractor should, you know, not just viewing COVID as a trend of like, oh, I had more business now I'm just going to continue to do the same thing. That was a nice bonus boost, or, you know, whatever it was. But like, no, don't go back to the way things was. Continue to stay inspired and connected to that why, that you are essential, that just because a pandemic isn't, new or novel that you go back to being the secondhand person. Like, you were important, you are important, you will always be important. And it's time to step up to that role of, we are just as needed as a medical doctor, even if the situation can be, ground zero or pandemic or, whatever it is. The world needs you as a chiropractor, and there's no way a chiropractor should be struggling. There's no way a chiropractor should be in this mindset of all I do is manipulate joints, because there's so much more, as you talk about in your book, than just the adjustment. Like, um, kind of transitioning into those thoughts of the chiropractor, seep in. We have all the media, we have all, medical doctors, we have patients, sometimes we have parents, we have family, we have friends that all kind of go into like, when are you going to get a real job soon? Or, all of those things. What kind of continues to inspire you and keep you moving forward through those super tough times when it's probably be easier just to be like, I'm done. People don't want to listen to me. It's the third time somebody didn't convert to a care plan today, even though they needed it. What are those things that like keep you motivated and keep you going?
So, there was a really good analogy that I used to hear at Dynamic Essentials at DE, which is, for your listeners, it's just one of the seminars that kind of just gives us our juice, our spizzerinctum, our excitement and passion towards chiropractic. And the chiropractors like us that are very passionate about it, it's easy to take it personally. It's easy to feel defeated when you're getting no. Yeah. But the analogy was, if you're in a hotel and you know that there's a fire, and the alarm is going off, whether the alarm is going off or not, you start knocking on hotel room doors at 2:00 in the morning. And people are like, I don't smell any smoke. I don't believe there's a fire. I'm going back to bed. Leave me alone. And you go and you're knocking on these doors. How long are you going to spend trying to convince them to open the door and get out? Or do you have to go with the four most important letters, and that's next, N-E-X-T? Because you can't get to everyone. You can't convince everyone. Some people may not be ready for it. Some people, you may not be the right messenger for it. Whatever it is, it's understanding that it's not personal most of the time. And it's just a matter of where people are in their life. Chiropractors, doctors in general, have to understand that they can't want it more than the client, patient, or practice member does, right? They don't need it more than you do. The public will always know if you're doing it out of desperation. Like, oh, I need the money, I need the cash. And some doctors are motivated by that. Whereas some are just so passionate, and then they get so frustrated. So I just stopped getting to the point of, you know what, this has to matter more to you than it does to me, because I have no problem going to the next person. Mm-hmm. And when you're able to move forward to the next, you just brush it off. And that comes with experience. I practiced over 23 years, and it was hard in the beginning. I mean, heck, I remember if they ate a Snickers bar or something like that, I'd be like, why would you eat a Snickers bar? Now I'm like, all right, well, let's just work on that. It's like, so it probably subluxated you. You drank too much last night. Okay, it probably subluxated you. Fine. Love them where they are. And for the ones that want to go where you want to go, you be their tour guide. You take them, you be their Sherpa, if you will. And it's just a matter of not caring, but not taking it personally and moving on to the next person.
Right.
So
that's good. And, any profession can take that, because we take it as I'm not valuable. And then the demons come in and continue to persuade you that what you do is, terrible and, whatever. But thank the Lord that chiropractic is such a successful profession, because you can have one person that, you nailed the report of findings. They know they need you, but they're like, I'll go somewhere else. But then the next person comes in and has headaches for 20 years and they do an adjustment. They don't have headaches anymore. It's like, it's so easy to kind of move on. It's like, oh, like, thank God that we have those testimonials. And I don't know how some other doctors do it that don't get those stories, that see people every 3 months and continue to prescribe or continue to do surgery or, whatever, and don't get those stories on a daily basis. Like, I know I take that for granted, just thinking back on my day yesterday, like we saw this person that happened. We saw this person that happened. And it was just like normal life for us, that people's lives are changed forever.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because, a chiropractor or the doctors will be like, what kind of miracles do you see in your office? I don't think that any of these amazing healings are miracles. Miracles, are when something happens that you don't expect and God just comes through. Yeah. We expect this. Yeah. When your nervous system is functioning optimally, we expect full healing, in most cases. So it's like a contradiction to call something a miracle that you have full expectation of. It's science. It's not supernatural. I do believe in innate intelligence and things that go beyond the physical world and the physical body. Don't get me wrong, but you could back everything up that we do in science,
Yeah.
or at least most of it, in science pretty easily. You can't back everything up in science because science hasn't caught up with other sides. But yeah, I mean, they're not miracles. They're everyday occurrences, ear infections, allergies, asthma. But we don't treat these conditions. What we do is we help the person overcome them by removing nerve interference. That's it. So for one person, like, I'll have someone come in with like low back pain. Their low back pain may not even go away, but now they could have a child.
Right.
I have a story of that about that in my book. I mean, there's so many crazy, I'm sure you've had that also, Dr. Chris, where someone comes in for one reason and maybe that problem, that symptom doesn't go away, but something else dramatically changes in their life.
Right. Yeah. I love that about chiropractic. And it's why, I'll always be involved in health and healing, because, that stuff could happen with an adjustment, with changing your diet, with changing your mental habits. Like, you're expecting one result, but it in fact took you somewhere that you never could have believed. Well, Dr. Brian, thank you so much for joining me. I know this is going to be an impactful conversation for so many people. How can people find you? Where can people find your book? Is there anything else that you want people to know about you before we sign off?
Yeah, simple. They could go to dreamwellnessbook.com. That's an option. It's called Dream Wellness, the 5 keys to raising kids for a lifetime of physical and mental health. So if some of your listeners don't have kids, doesn't mean they can't benefit from the content. 90% of the content is good for anyone, whether they have children or not. Maybe they have grandchildren, maybe they're not at the age yet of having children, or whatever it is. But it also gets you prepared if you do want to start a family. That book will come in handy. So dreamwellnessbook.com, super easy. You can find me on Facebook. I'm the only Brian Stenzler on Facebook, on Instagram, at Dr. Stenzler, D.R.E.A.M Stenzler, pretty easy to find. And then we also have a Facebook page. Facebook.com/dreamparents, I think it is. So if you want to be part of a community of other like-minded parents, those are easy ways to reach me. And so I'm here for anyone in the audience.
Awesome. And I know you may not have thought this through yet, but as far as like master classes and summits, what are some of the broad topics that you're hoping to bring out to the world?
Well, they're mostly topics that are from the book. I mean, it could be anywhere from the nutritional aspect, because I'll bring a nutrition expert. It won't be me. I'm a chiropractor, not that I don't know a lot about nutrition, but I'm going to bring in nutritionists. I'm going to bring in posture specialists. I'll bring in neurologists, gut microbiome type people. But I even include things about, getting kids and adults off screen time. Detox and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great things. In fact, any of your listeners that want to get some of our bonuses, if they just go to dreamwellnessbook.com, they don't want to buy the book. Every single person that listens to this can get, our guide to reading and understanding food packaging labels, vitamin and mineral guide, deficiencies and cravings, mastering self-love and finding peace and joy in you, reduce screen use for kids, ebook and digital detox for parents. So those are instant bonuses that everyone will get. And they could even take the Dream Score, which is an 85-question lifestyle assessment tool that asks all the questions that you would ask, one of your practice members, to understand why they might have some of the issues that they have. It's not going to ask about your blood pressure. It's not going to ask about your weight, your BMI. It's going to ask why. It's going to ask all these different questions as if we were stalkers, and finding out, why do you have the weight that you have, or the BMI or diabetes, the blood sugar? Why do you have the relationships that you have? And you get a report that will give you all that information. And if you do get the book, then the book will walk you through the entire report and get those scores. So there's so many different things that are coming up, and all of our online courses and master classes will be in alignment with all this content. I mean, the book is 460 pages. So you can imagine how many, you've got it. You can imagine how many different courses we can create. And I have people reaching out to me all the time. Hey, can you do a course on this? Can you do a course on that? My answer is yes and yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it could have been longer, because you practiced for 20 some odd years and it's only 400. That's only a page a day for a year, I mean, you got 20 years of experience in there. You shortcutted us. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Making it easy for you. But the Dream Score helps you get through the book in an hour. So if you take the Dream Score, it'll take you 25 minutes to do that. And then bam, if you don't want to read the whole book from cover to cover, you can just go to the pages that the Dream Score tells you to go to from the report.
Love it.
It's a pretty cool option.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for my patients to get it. I'm excited for my community to get it. I know it's going to just expand, the thinking of everybody to think more about not only just chiropractic, but why we do what we do, why we have those habits that are, maybe not so good, what's fueling the habits that are good, how we can apply those same, concepts and whatnot. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for you for this next stage of life. I think you deserve it. You've put a lot of years, we call it, in the trenches, working hard with, maybe your patients cared more about the things than some of the chiropractors. And so, one, I'm sorry for that, but then two, I'm excited that you get a little bit of a breather here to, to do things that you are passionate about. And I know you're going to be super successful. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to releasing this episode.
Thanks, Dr. Chris. Appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening to the Healthy Perspective Podcast. To connect with Dr. Bowman, follow him on Instagram @Dr. Chris Bowman. Until next time, make shift happen.